Aloha and welcome to Tiki Tuesday Talks. We're very excited this time. We actually have a quick announcement before we get into everything. We have adjusted our logo, as you guys can see here. After some conversations with Mariah Kunkel of the Pacifica Project, which you may have caught that one, and really kind of having some reflection on what we wanted to do and reflect in the future as kind of leaders of a trade organization revolving Tiki tropical culture, cocktails, etc. So would love to hear what you guys have to say about that. But with that said, I'm going to bring in the crew here. Hey, guys.
Aloha. Hello.
Aloha. Hello. Jon and Glendon and Unknown Dude. What's up?
Mystery guest. This is our mystery guest, Dave Ford. We found him in the parking lot. He was just moseying around. So
they said I could drink something here.
As good a reason as any. That's what we do here. We try to do some drinking. Where are you guys at? Talk to us about it.
All right. So we're coming to you live from the Taylor Showroom in Landover, Maryland. This is Dave Forbes with Taylor. They were kind enough to allow us to use their studio, if you will, to go through this awesome seminar. So, Dave, you want to tell me a little bit about yourself?
So basically, we're one of 37 distributors across North America. There are 120 some all throughout the world. And so part of that is Taylor Frozen Cocktail Machines. And so we represent them. We have for many, many years.
Our preferred machine.
Look at that.
So, about frozen cocktail.
Cool. Thanks for hosting. Appreciate it. Alana, you're with us.
Hey.
Where are you at? What's going on?
In Toronto, Canada, up north here. At the bar doing prep day. You know, usual. Well, it was Thanksgiving yesterday, so usual Monday on a Tuesday.
Right. Did you eat a lot? What's the vibe?
Well, we had like a little industry Thanksgiving with we're doing something called BBF, which was like a bartender's appreciation thing that we set up at a new venue that we just purchased. So we did that there. So we had Thanksgiving for industry people. I think 80 people showed up.
Wow.
Yeah, it was cool.
That's cool. Very cool. Guillaume, what's going on, man?
Hi, how are you guys? Good to be here. I'm here in the Plantation Rum showroom.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Very good. Very good.
Too bad I'm by myself, but
right on. Right on. Steva?
Hi, I'm actually at the Atomic Lounge today.
Yeah, new view. Wow.
Yeah. I wish you could see the whole bar. This is where I work on Friday and Saturday. So
cool.
Yeah.
I like that. That wall.
Right?
There. Yeah, that's kind of vibey.
Yeah, it's super vibey in here.
Aaron from the Plant Sanctuary in Baltimore.
Yes. Coming from you from the tropical oasis of Baltimore, Maryland, with my lovely plant Sandra, who is growing taller and taller every week. And love her from Plantation OFTD. So apparently that keeps her growing well. So we'll go to that.
It's a new occasion.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, we're gonna check back with you shortly. Let's get to our main presentation here, gentlemen. Before we go into that, actually, a little bit of background. As mentioned, this is kind of a part 2 of the art of blending, which Jon has delivered live at Tiki by the Sea a number of times in a very fun setting. Going a little bit deeper, talking about the Slushie Machine. As usual, chat box and questions. If you guys are on Crowdcast, you can ask questions. Same thing on Facebook Live with the comment section. Please do share via both. Tip jar, if you are so predisposed, at Jon, Jon-Arroyo, Arroyo. Presentation will be 30 to 40 minutes. Cocktail session, I mean, it's pretty much the same this time. And then we'll have 5 questions with the Tiki fam. So let me bring you guys back in for this. I'll introduce these guys. Glendon Hartley, first artist and bartender based in Washington, D.C. He began to educate himself while in university in all things alcohol related. Currently holds multiple certifications in spirits, notably the Bar 5-Day and something on Armagnac, which I'm actually trying to pronounce. Sounds very cool. I'd like to know more. He co-owns Service Bar, Super Rad Bar in DC, a lively neighborhood cocktail hub, and features a heavy rotation of local and seasonal ingredients, currently in its 4th year.
Year 4.
Jon Arroyo, innovative visionary in the culinary field.
You can tell I wrote that bio myself.
Yeah. Created and oversaw the nationally recognized beverage program that drove 25% annual revenue for a $100 million valuation company for Farmers Restaurant Group. Most recently, created the company's award-winning craft distillery, Founding Spirits. Jon is at the helm of all operations for driving culinary concepts, talent acquisition, and innovative marketing strategy. He's currently branching out at the Copper Fox Distillery in Virginia, where he's implementing a beverage program. With that, let's go to you guys. We're going to zoom in, I think, on this operation here.
One note after that.
Yeah.
We are going to load up our beverage into the Taylor machine right now to give you guys an indication on how long it actually takes for you to go from liquid to slushy cocktail.
This is live blend, so be careful.
Hold on to your thought, guys.
I just want to note for record, he hasn't spilled a drop. So he's a really talented bartender.
Steady hands.
This is impressive. I feel like I'm at Speed Rack.
Yeah. As usual, I'm bar backing because I suck. All right.
Best bar back in the game.
But you're a visionary.
I used to be able to carry 3 24 packs of Corona up the staircase, but I'm 45 now, so. Important to note for everyone, we're doing this intentionally because we want you to see live how efficient this machine works.
So it's 3:09 right now. We're going to go on and let us begin.
Rock and roll.
Cool.
All right. So in the past, when we did the seminar with Tiki by the Sea, it started mainly as a seminar based on the science of what it takes to really turn your cocktail into a frozen drink. We went, obviously blenders are part of that process. So, briefly, we would kind of go through the blenders that we think most bars would potentially use. I prefer the Vitamix myself, and we have a Vitamix with us today that we're going to show you to use. But, you can use a Ninja, you can use a Warren, wherever it is you got. That being said, we also focus a little bit more on the ice that goes into your frozen drink. In this particular case, and in the slides that you'll see, we recommend pebble ice to be used for your blender. What I really want to talk to you about today, though, is how we evolved to present-day Taylor machine. So after doing the seminar, I don't know, Pete can tell me, I don't know if it's 4 times, 5 times, we kept getting more and more questions about frozen drink machines.
I think 5. I think he did it 5
Okay.
times.
Boom. Let's make it a
What a bet.
And so I believe last year's Tiki by the Sea, I actually added the slide for the Taylor machine. And when Pete reached out to me for this opportunity, I thought it was perfect, a perfect opportunity. Not to mention that Glendon's been working with the Taylor machines for years and has this great relationship with our guys here at taylor-company.com. And so here we are. I go, okay, great. Why don't we just evolve to chapter 2 of our frozen drink seminar? So we're going to spend very little time on the blender portion. I just want to revisit this blender drink, go through some of the ratios that we have for the drink itself, and then really talk about how you go from that to this. Okay? So, Pete, if we can go to the actual composition slide of
This is it right here.
there's your ice, get a little heart around the pebble ice. I think it's the slide after this. There we go. So this pretty much just breaks down what is a frozen drink. Frozen drink, spirit plus juice plus fruit plus sweetener plus ice plus blender, and very important, plus speed and time equals blended drink. Now that's your blended drink formula, if you will. If you go to the following slide after this, Pete, we get into like this. Now, I will go as far as telling you this right now. This is not set in stone. This is not, perfect science. This is something that we have come upon during our experience of making blended drinks that basically says if you can keep your cocktail in this particular ratio world, chances are it's going to be a pretty good drink. So chances are, and what I mean by that is from a frozen drink perspective, you'll have a pretty good consistency in your cocktail. So I wanted to kind of revisit that before we go into the drink itself. So let's go to the drink. To the next slide. So we're going to do a hurricane today. I'm going to let Glenn tell you a little bit about the hurricane recipe as I prep the blender.
So this hurricane recipe, we essentially mimicked the recipe from Patty O'Brien's, but we broke it down a little bit. So as in New Orleans, you would use the fashionola, which is basically a blend of strawberry and passion fruit. We've kind of broken everything down to teach everyone the ratio that we're going to be using as far as flavor and alcohol to
Just to give you guys a heads up really quick before I start blending this thing, give a shout out to my boys Plantation. And also, so everybody be advised, Pete suggested that I use the bottle in front of my face for most of the seminar. So from this point forward, you're only going to see the bottle, not my face. But thank you again.
much better.
You guys are awesome. Here we go.
So right now, John is putting in the pebble ice that we have in the first slide.
I usually blend for a drink with this much sugar in it on a medium to high blend. You're going to notice the dramatic difference in consistency to a blender. Wow, look at that. All right. To the blender version of a frozen drink versus a frozen cocktail machine. Let's taste this thing. So, one of the things we talk about a lot in frozen drink making is consistency of the drink itself. That's very good content. It really depends on what you want your customer / guest to experience with the frozen drink and what the drink is itself. So this is a hurricane. Hurricane, because of the amount of sugar in this particular cocktail, you're going to have a much broader scope of where you can have, you can go slushy, you can go frozen, you can go fluffy, you can go smoothie. So it's a very versatile cocktail. Whereas if we get a pina colada per se, that's going to be a completely different consistency that you might be looking for.
The hurricane has a lot of bold flavors that transfer to a cocktail with a little bit more dilution in a big way. So you can taste all the flavors with the amount of water that you put into the beverage.
Let's go ahead and show you where we're at with the machine. You want to pour a little taste to see where we're at consistency-wise. Glenn will also talk a little bit about what we're looking for in the frozen drink.
So we've had this in here for about 6 minutes now. And you can see the consistency. It's frozen, but it's not yet where we want it to be. Where we want it to be is when it has a little bit of a peak on top. And we're going to be there in about 4 more minutes, I'd say. But right now, this beverage, like I've consumed a lot of beverages at bars with this consistency. So we're here after 6 minutes, and this is looking beautiful right now.
So literally 10 minutes in, you're good to go.
Basically, yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about what happens before we got to the part where Glendon put in the batch. One of the hangups of that you can do to yourself is obviously how do we go from single recipe to batch recipe? So let's talk through that a little bit. Specifically the hurricane recipe that we have for them on the slide.
So once you break down the hurricane recipe, you basically have a sugar content, but then you have a syrup that's made of a flavor that's typically a little bit sour. So what ratio that I use for doing these types of cocktails is we take your citrus and then you essentially double your citrus with the amount of sugar that you're going to have on hand in your beverage. And then what I typically do is match that with the amount of spirit that you're putting in. So equal ratio essentially of spirit to your sugar source, and then also with dilution. In that way, you can have different avenues in which to add flavor or subtract, and create a beautiful slushy cocktail. So that's the ratio that I choose to use, and the recipe that I've given you guys should reflect a little bit of that. We bumped up a little bit of the alcohol just to give it more flavor, and we played with the ratio a little bit, but that's the ratio that I tend to use.
Generally,
when you guys go from
sorry,
What do you say, Pete?
when you guys go from something you might do on a blender to this, is this something you might test in a smaller format and then
100%.
bump up? Yeah.
You don't want to do a 64-ounce batch test. Not a good look. I'm sure your bar manager would appreciate that as well.
So typically, if I was at Service Bar right now, or one of the other bar programs that I've set up, you can do a test with a blender, and you can do a big batch test. But typically, I would multiply my cocktail by 20 and use that ratio. But if I was at Service Bar, I would use liquid nitrogen to actually freeze the cocktail to the consistency
that's the next. That's the next step.
It's a lot easier. But,
Don't steal the content. We need a reason to get you back on, man.
But it's easy to use the ratio that you're using as far as like the pebble ice that you're going to put in to blend your cocktail into translating that into straight course of water.
That's a good point. So one of the ways that you can do that is to control your dilution when you're experimenting with your blender is weigh your ice. So, everybody has different vessels. They could be using an ice scoop or a measuring cup, which I would recommend. But to really put the control in place on the amount of water, because pebble ice, as great as it is for frozen drinks, it will melt too. And the number one enemy in any frozen drink is water. So, and your ability to control that water and from it freezing too fast in your cocktail and it getting clumpy, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing that I would consider when you're assembling and you're working on your ratios is the sugar content in the spirit. So for us, we're fortunate to work with a solid product in Plantation. I have a lot of familiarity with the product, but rum tends to have a little bit more sugar content than other spirits. So it wants to be in frozen drinks. But we'll talk a little bit about my Pisco guy here for a second. If you're making a Pisco sour drink, that's a completely different approach.
If you're making a Pisco sour frozen drink, you should just give up making frozen drinks again, because after you have that one, you're no longer going to want anything else.
Oh, really?
Of course, unless you have cachaça, right? Specifically,
Except for cachaça.
Except for cachaça.
There you go. I thought that's what I heard you say.
That's what I was
Yeah, it was confusing.
All right. let's check the machine. You can tell by the color, by the way, that this is probably very close.
Yeah. This one was getting. So this is essentially the consistency that I was talking about before, and we're 9 minutes in. So this is, you have the peak here, you have the structure of the beverage. It's not melting in my hands, and this is what you essentially want. This one was good, but this is the consistency that you get with a lot of other machines, but Taylor, it always comes out perfect.
Man, that does look good.
We had some plastic spoons. I wanted to show them, but let's taste this. You can see that this perfect. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Dave. You can see the 3 different consistencies here, right? This is still a drink. How's the consistency? Well, when you start to look at it and you get to this beautiful thing, you're like, put this over here. This guy,
Hand model.
what I was trying to say earlier, and it was a great tip, is even though that drink looked great, it still was a little too soon, because look at how fast it diluted. Versus this guy's just standing tall.
Yeah. And it also depends on the ambient temperature of the room or your setting. So if you're out on a beach somewhere, by the time you take this to a guest, it's going to look essentially like this. By the time you take this to a guest, it's going to look perfect. And it's going to have the perfect amount of dilution where they can actually consume it in
100%. He just mentioned a great point. You have to also consider the time that this might sit in a window. By the time it gets to the cocktail table or the dining table, you put so much love, time, and effort into it. You want it to look like this when it hits the table.
How does that evolve over time? Is it going to stay at that kind of perfect? So let's say your machine.
We still have X amount of minutes left in this seminar, so we'll put this guy over here.
Yeah.
We'll bring it back. But let's bring our resident expert back in here, Dave, because there's only so many. Glenn and I will definitely do a great job if we can, helping you get the science of the actual physical cocktail. But when it comes to temperature and things that are specific to this guy right here. So that's a great question. I guess it would depend on the product itself, whether this is a ice cream based product or a fruit based product. But what is the goal? What do you think the time standard would be that you want this drink to hold up and look as nice as it does right here? Wow, beautiful.
I think probably a good rule of thumb would be at least 15 minutes, because it's going to be gone by 5 minutes probably. But, I think it will start to melt a little, but it's going to look pretty much like that for a good amount of time. Again, it all depends. If your server is taking this to the beach in 110 degree weather, obviously it's going to degrade a lot faster.
Gotcha.
And then what about just over time? Let's say you're down 2 hours later after you put that mix in. Is it still pulling with the same consistency? Are
you talking about in the machine and coming out?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. All day long.
All day. Same vibe.
Not a problem. It's going to be the same consistency from the beginning of the day to the end of the day.
We got a question here for the expert. How big is the machine? How much volume does it hold?
So basically, that's a good question because we have lots of different machines. So you have countertop machines, floor model machines. They have different size hoppers, and we also have what we call remote fill, which are batches. So you can get it up to 20, 40 gallons in a batch. So
Dave, I hate to interrupt, but can we talk to them specifically about this machine right here that we just used? What do these 2 hoppers hold?
So that's going to be about 14 quarts.
Thank you, sir. Can you kind of talk our lovely audience through this actual machine, like a little bit of the specs about this machine, its capacity, how much drinks we can pump out in a 8-hour shift.
So basically, there are several ways to look at your capacity. One is ounces per hour. Okay, you can also look at what we call impact servings, and what that basically means is that how many drinks in a row you can draw without having it get too soft. That's really the key. And so each unit has its own capacity. And what I would suggest is that when you're looking at different types of equipment, like I said, we have 37 distributors across the U.S. I would suggest that what you would do is go ahead and call your local distributor. And by the way, we do have on our website, you can find your distributor on the website that's local. They'll come out and size the unit for you, and that way you'll get the right unit.
And if you don't find what you're looking for, Dave has offered to give everyone his personal cell phone number.
Right.
And you can text him at any given time, because whether you're West Coast time or East Coast time, he'll take care of you.
Dave, you gonna send me one of those to put back here? I got some space back here, and that could really up my game on these Tiki Tuesday talks.
The website that Dave is referring to is tailor-company.com. And you can go on there, put in your zip code, and you can find your designated dealer in your area.
I got some other questions for you guys. What's the electric pull? What's the electric pull of that machine?
So this one is a 208 volt single phase, and that's a 20 amp.
Got it.
And this is a 2-flavor machine. We only have 1 flavor running.
Got it.
We also have single as well.
Another question for you.
Why get a single when you can do a double?
There you go. Good point. What specifically is the technology that makes it silky, smoother, denser than other machines such as Bun? Can you guys talk about that?
So what we do is we have soft tech controls, and what we're actually measuring, we're not measuring how cold this gets. We're actually measuring amp draw for the motor, and what it does is it measures when this goes around how much amps it draws, which actually is a better measurement for how frozen this product is. So it's not going to get too frozen or obviously too soft.
You're essentially measuring the consistency.
Exactly.
Of the rotation.
And you guys, those are fake drinks right there, right? You just spray painted those.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding us. Let's take drinks. Cheers. It's an honor to be here amongst the Tiki by the Sea commune.
Commune. Yes, indeed. We got a slide here. Do you want to talk through this a little bit, John? Your machine?
Yeah. I kind of wanted to, after conferring with Glendon on the machine, and we kind of just came up with what we thought were some good touch points that you should consider when you're using a frozen cocktail machine.
Yeah, you did a good job putting as many words on this slide as possible. So I'm sure everybody can read that at home.
Yeah. Thanks, Pete.
Let's talk it.
But that being said, we should probably segue a little bit to troubleshooting. Some of the bigger things questions that I've gotten in the past for these frozen drink machines. And then if you have something, super technical, obviously we have Dave, but I think we're going to start with this parts kit. So if you want to come back, Pete, this is, again, we got a case of this for you, Pete, coming to you next week.
Perfect.
Yes.
As long as it's coming with the machine.
So typically when people say they have issues with any frozen cocktail machine, it usually breaks down to improper cleaning, okay? Because we are using a product with a lot of sugar, so you can get some sticking and everything else, but also lubrication. And so this has to be lubricated on a regular basis. But more importantly, we also have what we call a tune-up kit. And you can see not many parts, but these are very important because these are what we call the wear items. And you have things like O-rings and hubs and things like that. And what these should be replaced about every 3 months. And we also have scraper blades, which are what turning around and making sure that we have a consistent product. So if these are replaced on a regular basis, and this is very cheap, you're really doing your own preventative maintenance. And you just do this when you do a cleaning. So it takes you no extra time to do a cleaning. And you basically made this machine brand new again.
Got it.
Awesome. Glendon, you want to talk to them a little bit about ambient temperature, how important it is, where your machine is located?
I would love to. As we spoke about earlier, obviously, if you're in a warmer environment and you have received this cocktail, it's going to melt quicker. So my whole ethos is that if you have one of these machines, it should not be sitting out in a warm area where it's going to take a lot more power to actually freeze this beverage. Also, actually, I'm going to turn this over to Dave in a little bit, but you have to have a good amount of ventilation, especially if your machine is air cooled. And can you tell them what this cool thing over here is?
So basically, this is what we call a top air discharge. We're bringing fresh air in from this side, and we're discharging air top. The reason why we use this is because we actually have a fan that's blowing that through, and if you put something next to it, like cups or straws or something like that, it will actually blow over. But it's also a good way to get any heat. Now, there's not a lot of heat coming off of this. This is probably about maybe 80 degrees at most. But the important part is that this will allow it to go up and dissipate away from the machine. What we're talking about with ambient temperature, so if you're in a situation where it's consistently hot, you can also get a water-cooled machine. But more importantly, even in hot temperatures, if this unit is outside, we have a lot of Tiki bars that are outside and they use this machine. And we tell them if it's under cover, doesn't have to be in, if it's not direct sunlight, then you should be fine. So even in DC temperature at 165 degrees, at least that's what it seems like, you can still have this outside and it still will work. But you're absolutely, Glendon's probably absolutely right. You need enough ventilation. You can't put equipment directly up against it. You're going to need at least 3 to 6 inches.
Got it. You guys cut out for a second, but I think what I took away from that is as long as it's covered, even if it's hot, it's okay. And then you want to make sure to have enough room for the ventilation on the backside.
Essentially, yes.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. We had a question here as well. It's kind of related. Is it possible to leave the mix in the machine overnight and stay chilled, kind of like ready to go?
Yes.
There you go. Easy enough.
How long can they, what is the best practices for the product in the machine? Is best practice take the product out of the machine every night and clean the machine through? Or and obviously, every state, province, and city has their own health requirements. This is not the part I'm talking about, but I'm specifically saying the capabilities of this machine. Can they have their frozen hurricane in there for 24 hours or 48 hours?
They definitely can. You're going to get some degradation. And what I always say is that depending on the product that you're running, the drink that you're running, if you're going to run it for longer than 24 hours, you want to draw it out at the beginning of the shift and make sure it's to your standards. But you should be cleaning this machine at least 2 times a week. But as you talked about, there are different standards in each state, and what you're going to find, like in California, you have to empty this machine, clean it every day.
Something for you, two things really quick. There's two things that we troubleshoot, and they're super simple, and they happen all the time. What if the drink is too thin, and what if the drink is too chunky? What do we do then?
Well, we were talking about that yesterday, actually. So what I do is I told you guys my ratio. Make sure the sugar is at least the same quantity as the alcohol you're putting in there, and at least the same quantity of dilution. Dilution, I mean water, not tea, not soda, or any other thing that you were going to put in there. And then you can kind of play around with those ratios. So first off, if you're using something like a blended up coconut fat, or I had a question about strawberries yesterday. The strawberry syrup that we used here, we actually cooked the strawberries until they were actually able to be pressed through a chinois. So there's no large chunks. So with that said, if you're making a beverage that has chunks of fruit or fat or anything in there, there's obviously going to be some stray from that ratio. And you just have to play around with either the dilution or the amount of alcohol that you're putting in there, or the sugar content. So that's, I mean, honestly, that's my live all be all for cocktails like this. So if it's too thin, I would bump up the sugar content or bump up the water content as well. Those are two things that will definitely help your cocktail freeze a lot better. Just make sure it's not freezing till it's, just make sure you're doing it incrementally, so it's not freezing to the point where you can't actually consume the drink.
General rule of thumb, and another thing.
Too thin has to do a lot with too much booze or imbalance ratio going out.
100%.
Yeah.
The kind of like the standard, the golden standard for cocktails, frozen drinks is when you start to troubleshoot the actual recipe itself, it's rare that the answer is going to be more water or even more booze. It's usually always going to come down to the sweetener and the level of sweet that you have in there. That's where I would start to manipulate the drink when you're starting to troubleshoot it, both in a frozen drink machine or frozen cocktail machine. Dave, he gets a little upset when I say frozen. You want to see this guy unravel, man. He's like, but yeah. So that's kind of, and also the other thing to bear in mind as well, and I'll go back and I said it again. Be conscious of the sugar content in your spirit. You know, each spirit has their different bricks and levels of sugar content, but you know, water is rarely going to be the answer of dealing with whether it's too clunky or too thin.
So when you guys have, because we've all had many of those cocktails, as you showed, kind of the first pull, right? You're 6 minutes after, which is a little bit thin, not bad, but is that tend to have more to do with people being impatient at the bar and just throwing out cocktails because they've been waiting, or is it more to do with imbalance because you don't have the right blend to go in the beginning?
May I take the first shot at that? So, not to throw another shout out to Taylor, even though these guys are great, but that's
sponsoring.
That's a testament to the machine. Okay, so a lot of there are different qualities of slushy machines out there, but when you're talking about, there's a couple of different things that could be happening in that. It could be the cocktail recipe itself. It could be the machine not able to hold temperature, or it could be what Dave was talking about earlier, where how many drinks can you actually pull in a 5-minute span and still have this kind of consistency. By the way, it's still holding even after X amount of time.
I think that's a testament to actually having Taylor come out and see your venue to give you an actual recommendation on the machine that you should have. A lot of places just go out and buy machines on either Amazon or from other distributors, but it might not support the volume that they're distributing the cocktails at, in which you're going to always have a cocktail that's not really prepared for the situation that you're in.
Got it. We got another question here. A lot of questions for you guys, surprisingly. Is puree better than fresh fruit when it comes to flavor?
Definitely not.
Let's go back to this.
No,
No, man, please, you go. You got this one.
So
Go.
you can have purees from. I know a lot of people love the.
I'm just gonna
French
drink
purees.
this.
They love French purees because they feel like the French make the best purees. But you have a sugar content there, and you don't know essentially how your syrup or how your drink is going to react to that puree. There's stabilizers in puree. There's a lot of other types of citric acid in puree, and you don't know how it's going to react to your cocktail. So I would always use the fresh fruit. And you can also make purees out of the fresh fruit if you don't want to have to get fresh fruit all the time. You can blend it up, put it with sugar, and you can put it in your freezer. That's how you make puree. So I would always use fresh fruit when available.
Pete, let's avoid that question in the next seminar because you got really worked up.
It's a lot of passion. It's good. We like to get passionate here at Tiki by the Sea. You know?
I will say one thing, not to be disagreeable, although I like to disagree with them a lot. You have to bear in mind one thing with the fresh fruits, water content. Fresh fruits will have a little bit more water content than working with a frozen fruit or puree, if you will. It's just a different control, but don't lose sight of that, you know, especially when they're in season. Or if you're using a cucumber or things of that nature, which tend to have a lot more water content.
If you're processing your fresh fruit, you know the flavor of it, and you have an idea on what that water content is going to be.
Understood.
Adjust.
Sort of an adjacent question. How would you adjust your ratio for thicker or more sugar concentrated syrup?
Well, if you have thicker, or if you have if you have a syrup that's more than 50% sugar, that's exactly.
Woo! Gotta relax. Gotta relax here.
If you have a syrup,
You're getting him worked up over there. You're jamming him up.
if you have a syrup that's more than a 50-50 ratio, you're obviously going to want to play with that recipe a little bit more. A syrup that contains more than a 50-50 ratio can actually support more alcohol in your actual drink. So you're doing yourself a favor by consolidating that down into the syrup. But you're always going to have to play with your alcohol content and your water content. You don't want it to be too thick, and you don't want your guests to get a drink that's so highly concentrated that they don't want to buy another one. So you have to bear that in mind.
Also, it depends on the sweetener that you're talking about. You know, that's going to factor in it too. It doesn't hurt you to err on the more of the sweet, like a 2-to-1 ratio. If you have the time or the space or the type of program to support this, you could have sweeteners that are just specifically for your frozen drinks, and that's an even safer play, if you will. You'll find a little bit more success with that sugar content for sure if you're at a 2-to-1 or 1.5-to-1 kind of deal.
Got it.
Is that okay?
That's sufficient.
All right, good. Next.
That's what we got. That's what we got.
That's what we got.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. Are we? Do we still have time, Pete, or we got?
Yeah, we still have time. What do you want to talk about?
All right. Let me go back here. Are we good on questions right now, Dave? Did we miss anything that we didn't want to?
How are you going to implement this in your new program? Are you going to have like 85? I'm picturing like a wall of Frozens. You know what I mean?
John,
Kind of like a wall of amps.
and he's going to have them side by side.
Yeah, there's a three for one special going on these machines right now.
Yeah.
You maybe didn't mention it, but I'll make sure you guys get his cell phone number and you can connect with him.
It's all going to be self-served too.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Now you're talking.
I think that there was in the craft cocktail world, unfortunately, in the beginning stages, if you will, there was kind of a stigma to frozen cocktail machines because of probably the location that you would most likely see a frozen cocktail machine at the time, whether it might be in a margarita or a sports bar or, a cheesy beach venue. But I think it's been embraced specifically in the past 5 to 6 years where now, you can get a frozen penicillin And it's such a, when used correctly, and it's great to be in the house of experts and really have the machine here to kind of talk through it. This thing can pump cocktails out and pump them out as consistent as any bartender. It just really circles back to you. How fluent are you with the equipment, and how fluent are you with your ratios to make a natural frozen drink? And I will go as far as saying this, and Glendon might disagree with me on this, but if you can't make a frozen drink in a blender, forget about the frozen drink machine. You got to get this right first. You're going to learn a lot about yourself and a lot about frozen drink cocktail making here. And plus, contrary to what Pete likes to do, which is to do a 64-ounce test batch, I say you need to do a little 8-ounce.
As long as you bought the product, man, it's all good with me.
Yeah, it's like just do a case of per batch, and But I think that you got to get this down, because again, you'll learn a lot of valuable lessons in a smaller amount of a cocktail versus experimenting in the big machine and just failing miserably.
I have to agree with John on that point. You should always use this machine first before you. This machine, the blender, will teach you how to build your ratios, and it'll also teach you a lot about yourself. What's your ratio? What's your personal ratio? And how you want to make cocktails. But as the industry transcends into higher volume cocktail bars with cocktails that are actually made correctly, I feel like the corny keg systems that we would only see at margarita bars or these types of machines are going to be proficient in what we're trying to do in the future.
Yeah, and if you guys want to catch version 1 of this seminar, I think we probably got another 15 years of John coming to Wildwood and presenting this one. So I can't wait to see you at 60.
Pops is out there with the
yeah, he'll be there.
He would crawl,
getting cranky, It's
classic. I miss old Tiki by the sea.
Yeah.
I hope you're safe, by the way, and healthy. Do a little shout out. Before we cut off, I do want to specifically thank Pete for having us on here. Steve obviously for tolerating me all these years, and Nate wherever he's at, Marvin, even Aaron Joseph, who really started us around and got us that rum.
Aaron's tending to his plants right now, so he's no longer.
Also want to send a thanks out to our guys here at Taylor, John Bancroft, who's off camera, Art Jock, and of course the infamous Dave Forbes here, notorious at this point.
We love having you.
It's been great. We're hoping
this is the first acceptance speech I've heard. So well done. We do have another question, actually. I'm going to throw up the cocktail one more.
Fire away.
John did the whole thing without icing anyone.
What was the thought between the 3 different rums here? Yeah, I'm waiting for the icing to come any moment.
It's in the mail.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's between these 3 different rums and why you utilize them?
All right. So basically, Plantation threatened us that if we didn't use at least 3 of them, I'm kidding. Do you want to talk to them? Go ahead.
So we love to use the white rum as a base. So you build your flavor off of that one. And then once you find your golden ratio, as said previously, you start to mess around with flavors. So the pineapple dark rum makes a fantastic addition to the flavor of the white, because the white is nice and grassy and you get these nice floral notes off it. But the pineapple has this nice note that adds to the passion fruit and the strawberry, plus the added molasses. And then you always have to have some sort of overproof in there. So just a little bit, but to bump up the
overproof addition of the overproof rum, when you have access to it, really helps bind the drink together. So it's kind of like your bitters, it says there's a little seasoning in there, and it really brings the drink together, because there's so many flavors. Again, you're dealing with all, the caveat to all Tiki drinks is the sweetness. And it doesn't have to be that way. You should still aim for good balance, approachability and things of that nature. And so when all else fails, just throw some overproof rum in there, or overproof cachaça, and
Yeah, we just like the base, and then you pepper in a little flavor on top of that.
Got it. Great. Let me put your contact info up. So if anybody wants to be in touch, I'm not sure why, but you can via these mechanisms here. Ask these guys further questions, dig in a little bit deeper. Thanks so much, guys. We're going to come back to you to say goodbye, so don't go anywhere, but I'm sure you got some cocktails to drink over there.
You got it. Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Cheers. All right. Alana,
Hey,
what's up?
not much. How are you?
Thanks for your patience.
Yeah,
It's
of
hard
course.
to Jon Arroyo speak for that long, you know what I mean? But we managed.
Well, that was my third time now, and I still enjoy it every time.
Yeah, no, he's great. That's a total joke, of course. All right. 5 questions. You ready?
I guess so.
All right. Weirdest thing you saw in Wildwood. Weirdest thing.
Weirdest thing. I don't know. I thought it was when we're all like kind of like with the comforter blankets, like some people with like a group of people. We were cold on that Saturday of like I think you said one of the coldest days in Wildwood in June.
Yeah.
And we were like in comforter blankets. I thought that was kind of weird and funny. At least those pictures are hilarious.
Yeah, those are hilarious. Everybody basically drug down their blanket from the room and was cocooned in it. And meanwhile, our photographer's like trying to make this look like a fun, exciting Tiki experience. He's like, what do you want me to do with this, dude? Sideways rain. Sideways rain. All right. Describe Steva Casey in one word.
Amazing.
No.
Amazing. That's all. Like, she's everything amazing. She's great.
Wow. It's another acceptance speech in the works, I think.
Listen, Toronto is my second home, so
we miss you.
I miss y'all.
Oh man, it's the same but different, but very different. But we'll still be here.
You know, that's a good segue. Tell us about the land to the north.
Well, Ontario specifically, we just got shut down again. We can do just to go and patio, but other than that, inside dining room has just got shut down on what was it, the 9th of October? So 28 days and hopefully that's it, but we'll see how it goes. Other than that, I think we're all in the same boat, really. We're all experiencing this in different times, but we're all experiencing this. So just trying to push through and focus on a good to-go program and shit like that.
And shit. Well said.
Yeah.
How can we support you guys? Is there any way that our viewers can support you guys?
Well, yeah, we just started like an online store for Shameful Tiki Room. So we have 2 locations, one on the other side of Canada in Vancouver and here in Toronto. So everything from mugs and T-shirts and all that jazz we're doing online. Other than that, I don't know, just a nice little like hello review, some love to the staff, that kind of shit.
Yeah. Well, I'll be on the lookout for that. I definitely need to improve my mug selection here in Las Vegas. So, you know, awesome. All right. Favorite Tiki by the Sea memory?
That's tough. Like, just like some funny times. Like, I remember when my roommate Rhonda came back from Walmart, and we were just like laughing about something really funny, and that's one of my favorite times. I remember trying to batch cocktails and like shake them in the big jugs.
And not like giant batch buckets.
And I was like, how do you do this? And things like that, like just like more really funny, great moments with individuals. Cause like, that's what my favorite part is just like meeting people and connecting. And that's what Tiki by the Sea is about. And like, whether it was volunteering or being part of the whole thing, it was just those little moments.
Very nice. Very nice. All right.
Yeah.
Favorite meal you had in Wildwood, New Jersey?
Well, that's got to be your dad's boil, right? Like, it's got to be that. That was the best. It was the best.
I agree. I'm gonna have to stop asking that question because everybody says that. You know, it's gonna give him a big head. Not that he knows how to use the internet and watch these things or something. When are you coming out of Vegas? I'm throwing in an extra question.
So my twin sister is gonna get married on Halloween. I was looking at flights today, and if I can pull it off, it's just the 14-day quarantine thing. That's obviously a struggle. But if I don't know, I'm thinking about that sooner than I want to come down, obviously, but we'll see.
Well, hopefully, let me know if you make it. I'm here. I'm hunkered down.
What do you like? Do you like living in Las Vegas? What do you think?
Yeah, it's cool. I'm out kind of in the Red Rock area, so there's
Cool.
a lot of space. I'll get some hiking in. It's been good.
Yeah.
It's sort of kind of half open, like opening, but you never know. Same idea as everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
Steve, what do you got?
I miss Atlanta and Shameful Tiki and Toronto, and if you guys get to have a beverage together at Frankie's Tiki Room without me, I'm going to be very jealous. Because I know that you love that place, Atlanta, and that Las Vegas will be very lucky to have you if you get to go to Cassie's wedding. That'll be amazing.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Is your wedding postponed?
Yeah, I know. Now my little twin sister gets to beat me. It's kind of some bullshit, but you know what? if I'm happy that she well, with everything going on in the world, she wants to do it because who knows if things change, right? So she's definitely gonna go for it, and I'm happy. And she's doing a little spooky white wedding chapel thing on Halloween, and
hell yeah,
sounds fun.
That's
so
funny.
yeah,
That's
hopefully I can get there. We'll see.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
please give Aviva our love.
Very cool. Thanks for joining us. Just a quick note.
We'll do.
We got Julie Reiner and Ed Teach, Master Distiller of Kopali, talking about going green in rum production. Julie is a global brand ambassador, but also, as you guys probably know, owner of Clover Club. Previously, a number of other amazing bars, just leader in our industry. Super excited about that. We'll bring everybody back in. Say goodbye. How those drinks, guys? Hey. They're gone. They're gone. They're gone already. You got a big crash, so you got plenty of work to do.
Nice
Al
to see you
Thompson
guys.
and Marvin both say hi, by the way. What? Jon and Glendon.
Who's that hi?
Al Thompson and Marvin.
Oh, nice.
Appreciate you guys. It's been a lot of fun. Guillaume, good to see you in the lab. Thanks for supplying lovely rum.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Good music.